Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Queen Elizabeth, A Day in Her Life. Today we're going to go back to the day that an intruder entered Queen Elizabeth's residence while she was there. It's an amazing story, and I'm glad that Queen Elizabeth was not harmed. So the incident happened in June 1982. Michael Fagan was the man's name, and he scaled a drain pipe and managed to get inside the palace. A housemaid was startled seeing him and called the guards. Michael left, and the guards didn't believe her story. He then entered the palace through an unlocked window on the roof and walked around for about 30 minutes while eating cheddar cheese and crackers. The thing was that the alarm was tripped, but the police didn't respond because they thought it was a faulty alarm. So I bet they caught some heat from that, and if they didn't, they should have. But while he was there, he looked at royal portraits, and he sat on a throne, and he also entered the post room and drank a half a bottle of white wine and then snuck back out. Well, this guy was crazy because then he decided to do it another time in that same year on July the 9th. But this time, he made it to the Queen's bedchamber. Once again, the alarms went off, but the police thought it was faulty and turned it off. According to Paul Wiltshire, a British historian, he disturbed the Queen by opening her bed curtain, but she was able to call a footman who detained the intruder until the police arrived. Michael Fagan was later held in a mental hospital for 3 months of treatment. The general consensus is this: he clambered over the gate near the ambassador's residence, spent some time exploring the room where the royal stamp collection is housed, and then shimmied up a drain pipe to the roof. Along the way, he triggered a number of alarms that were, again, deemed to be false or did not properly activate. From the roof, he made his way on a ledge that granted him access to the royal residences, and he found his way to the Queen's private chamber and pulled back her bed curtains, waking her up. Some reports say that she used her safety training skills to engage him in conversation until he asked for a cigarette, and she was able to send for a footman, who in turn called the police. Well, Michael Fagan, the guy that did all this, tells what happened the second time around. Fagan said in a 2012 interview with the Sunday Independent that reports the Queen engaged him in conversation were wrong. She went past me and ran out of the room, her little bare feet running across the floor, he said, and then a footman offered him a drink. The footman came in and said, "Cor effin' hell, mate, you look like you need a drink." His name was Paul Wybrew, which is a funny name for someone offering you a drink. So another version of the story was from, according to IrishCentral.com, Rick Steves' Ireland tour guide, Stephen McFlimmy, has said that Fagan had been drinking in an Irish pub the night before and bet people £5 each that he could get into the Queen's bedchamber. He used some of that money to take a taxi to the palace, telling the incredulous driver along the way what he planned to do. Once inside the Queen's bedchamber, McFlimmy says Fagan's goal was quite creepily to convince her to give him a kiss. In any event, Fagan was charged with stealing wine because trespassing was a civil rather than a criminal offense at the time, and Fagan did not serve any jail time. Instead, he spent 6 months in a psychiatric facility. Later, he went on to record a cover of the Sex Pistols' God Save the Queen with the punk band the Bullock Brothers. Well, the Newsweek interview with Michael Fagan, on the first occasion, he drank a half a bottle of Prince Charles's wine before leaving undisturbed in 1982. He claims he had too many magic mushrooms 5 months earlier. He told The Independent in 2012, "I forgot, you're only supposed to take a little handful. 2 years later, I was still coming down. I was high on mushrooms for a long, long time." In his 2012 account, he said, "I found rooms saying Diana's room, Charles's room, and they all had names on them, but I couldn't find a door that said WC for the bathroom. All I found were some bins with corky food written on them, and I was breaking my neck to go to the toilet. What to do? Pee on the carpet? So I had to pee on the corky food. I got into Charles's room and took the wine off the shelf and drunk it. It was cheap Californian. In the throne room, he described making himself comfortable and taking his time viewing the Queen's art." Well, what did the Queen say to him? Michael entered the Queen's bedchamber and pulled back her bed curtain, and he saw the Queen looking back at him. He said he was scarier than he'd ever been in his life. He said, "Then she speaks, and it was like the finest glass you can imagine breaking. 'What are you doing here?' Then she ran and got her footman. The Queen phoned the palace switchboard twice for the police, but none arrived. The duty footman, Paul Wybrew, who had been walking the Queen's dogs, finally appeared, followed by 2 policemen, who removed Fagan. Well, who is this character, Michael Fagan? According to smoothradio.com, Michael Fagan was born in Clerkenwell, London on August 8, 1948. His father, Michael, was a steel erector and a champion safebreaker. He also had 2 younger sisters, Marjorie and Elizabeth. In 1966, he left home at 18 to run away from his father, who Fagan said was violent. And he began working as a painter and a decorator. And in 1972, he married his partner, Christine, whom he had 4 children. What happened to him? The second time he broke in, he was charged with theft of wine. And that time it was a civil offense, as I said, and not a criminal one, to trespass. According to smoothradio.com, after that, he received psychiatric evaluation and spent 3 months in a psychiatric hospital. Well, one episode said 6 months and this one said 3, so I don't know what to believe there. Fagan did go on to commit more crimes. He attacked a Welsh police officer in 1984, and 3 years later, he was found guilty of indecent exposure. In 1997, Fagan, his wife, and their 20-year-old son were charged with conspiring to sell heroin, and he served 4 years in prison. So he's had quite a life there. In 2022, he was living in London and was 73 years old. Speaking to The Sun, he said that he did not have any regrets for his palace visits. People who have done marvelous things get to kneel in front of her to be honored, but I actually sat on her bed and almost got to talk to her. Well, I don't think that's anything to be proud of. He didn't do this thing in a right way to honor her presence, but instead scared her half to death. So what did the Queen think? According to metro.co.uk, the Queen's former Royal Protection Officer, Richard Griffin, had said the late monarch thought Fagan was just a drunk member of the staff. He told Sky News, "I discussed it with the Queen, and she initially said she thought it was a member of the staff who had too much to drink. Then she quickly realized what was happening." He added, "The saving grace was that he hadn't recognized her. She asked him what his name was, and he said Michael, and he asked her what her name was, and she said, 'What do you want?' And he said he wanted some food and drink, and she was able to summon the police, and the rest is history. She just thought he was just a member of the staff, but couldn't understand how he got past the police officer on the door. But he had obviously been relieved from her duties." And Mr. Griffin said the police officer who was due to wait outside that night had been relieved of his duties early, and the footman came to relieve him, then left his post for 10 minutes to take the Queen's corgis out. It was in that small window of time that Fagan managed to get into her room. And then Mr. Griffith, the security guy, said how he found his way there. There's over 700 rooms, and there's not a sign on the Queen's bedroom saying the Queen sleeps here. He just turned up in that 10-minute slot, and fortunately the footman came back and saw the bedroom door ajar and went in. And what are the odds that a man broke in and went straight to the Queen's bedroom when there are 700 rooms in the palace? But I'm glad that he didn't mean any harm, and that the Queen's footman was able to get him away from the Queen. And I hope that they fixed the alarm system, since they kept thinking it was faulty and not responding to it. And I also hope the police who didn't respond to the alarm were reprimanded. Things could have gone so much worse than it did. So Queen Elizabeth was an extraordinary woman who always seemed to stay calm no matter what the situation. And she also had quick thinking, and it was her quick thinking that saved her that night. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, if you could give it a thumbs up, it would be great. And if you haven't subscribed, if you could do that, it would be good too. So I hope everybody's been having a great day, and tune in again soon for another episode of Queen Elizabeth, A Day in Her Life. Thank you. Bye.